Now, let's get to our call in conversation. This is something that a lot of parents, a lot of people are concerned about social media and its impact on children. The U.S. Surgeon General wants to see warning labels on social media platforms, like those warning labels that we see on cigarette cartons. Dr. Vivek Murthy told the New York Times social media has contributed to a mental health crisis among young people. What do you think of this? What have you experienced in your family? Call in 204-780-0893. Again, 204-780-0893. Our guest today is Dr. Michelle Warren. She is a Winnipeg psychologist who's passionate about this subject. She works with children and adolescents. Thanks for joining us in the studio today.
Thank you very much for having me.
The Surgeon General referred to a mental health crisis among young people. Do you see that happening in Canada as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Canadian and American data is quite similar. Screen use and social media use is a little higher in the U.S. compared to Canada in terms of the amount of time that children are online and using it. But it really affects kids' mental health. And we have reason to believe particularly females and particularly younger teens.
204-780-0893. Call in now. What do you think we can do to protect children from social media if this is the case? Do you think a warning label, like the U.S. Surgeon General suggested, a warning label on social media platforms will work? What do you think needs to happen? And what have you witnessed in your own family? 204-780-0893. What does social media do to you? Does it make you feel a little bit of that fear of missing out or like your life isn't as good as everybody else's? That's something that's hit me. Dr. Michelle Warren is our guest today. What kind of difference have you seen social media make in the lives of your patients?
And my own child and our friends and family out there who have come of age with social media, whether they're 12 or 20 years old, young people are growing up with feedback all of the time about whether they fit in or how their appearance or their social lives compares to others. We're worried about compare and despair. We're worried about emotional contagion, which is what it's called in social psychology. When you see negative posts, they've done studies that your mood then comes down afterwards. And this is with young adults, with university students, let alone younger children. And also displacement, that kids aren't doing enough socializing in person and physical activity.
Right, because they're online all the time. That's where they think all their friends are. Okay, so many things you just touched on there. 204-780-0893 to join our conversation. We have been receiving some feedback today from radio listeners. We're going to go to Sophie now, who spoke with Marcy Marcusa about this on Information Radio this morning. Sophie did a social media break experiment to see how it would impact her mental health.
At the very beginning, the first day or two, it was really, really hard. I kept reaching for my phone and looking for my Instagram and Snapchat app, but it wasn't there because I deleted them. But towards the end of it, it felt I don't know, like a weight off my shoulders, if that even makes sense. It's just like, oh, I don't even have to worry about it. I wasn't comparing myself to other people. I wasn't trying to keep up with other people. I wasn't wasting my time mindlessly scrolling. So again, challenging at first, but rewarding by the end of the week. And I have tried to instill shorter breaks because this was almost 5 years ago now. I've tried to instill shorter breaks whenever I feel like I need a little bit of a social media cleanse.
That was a young adult, young Manitoban talking with Information Radio this morning. What do you think of those breaks, Dr. Michelle Warren?
Wow, Sophie, so much self-control and awareness. Very, very impressive. I don't know how old she was exactly 5 years ago, but social media is designed to get us hooked and keep us hooked. And so can you imagine what self-control and commitment that took? And then she experienced this lift in her mood or in her activities on a daily basis. That's really impressive.
204-780-0893 if you want to weigh in on this. You don't have to be an expert. We just want to know how it makes you feel or how you worry that it's impacting your children or your grandchildren. Let's talk about that impact of all that negativity on not just your mood, but when we're talking about younger kids, what about brain development? Does screen
Yeah.
time impact that as well?
Like they're starting to really look at that in research. First, we found that there was a correlation between excessive or problematic use with mood and other issues like academic issues.
But how do you define that? First of all, problematic use. Where's the
That's a
line?
great question. So, different researchers define it differently. Problematic can be just too much time on screens. It can be an impact on your academic performance. It can be increased problems, conflict between parents and kids, and then increased anxiety and/or depression, which again we're seeing more in females than we are in males for various reasons. We think.
Okay, do we want to touch on those various
Sure.
reasons
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Why? Why
Well,
women?
boys use more screens more to interact with others, like playing video games, or they are entertained. And they still have what's called parasocialization or passive use, just scrolling and looking at other people's posts, but they're doing less of that. Girls are doing more of that. And when they do it for a variety of psychological reasons, like females are more prone to be hard on themselves at a younger and an older age. So it's really impacting girls. They're using this passive way of getting information. They're not having as much fun and interacting with friends on social media. Sometimes they're setting up actual in real life social plans. Sometimes they're offering social support to one another, but they're also seeing the ways in which they don't stack up.
But they do stack up. It's the way their brains perceive them. It's not stacking up.
Yes.
I'm just, I
You're
just
worried
want to.
about it.
I want to hug everybody and tell them they're okay, but I can't do that.
Well, I like the idea of a cleanse.
Like Sophie suggested. Andre, thank you for calling Radio Noon.
Oh, hello, Miss Stewart.
How are you?
I'm sorry. Just a minute. I'm going to get somebody to turn on my radio. Just a moment.
So one of the things we're talking about here, Andre is just going to get somebody to turn down the radio, which is a great idea if you call in, because otherwise you get echo and feedback and stuff like that. But hi, Andre.
I'm the fellow that you run into in the community from time to time.
It's nice to talk to you, my friend. Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to say now, I'm a very, very anomalous person in that I am a complete and utter technophobe. I have no use for cell phones or any technological innovation of the past 30 years or so whatsoever. You know, I'm completely analog. You know,
Can I ask, Andre, why did you make that choice? I mean, I know just Andre, often if you live in the South Osborne area of Winnipeg, and I know this is very specific, but you can see there's a very fashionable guy in a big black cowboy hat in a wheelchair. He often wears a poncho. That's Andre. Thanks for calling, Andre. Why have you made the choice to stay off social media and cell phones?
Because they hurt me. They make me feel terrible about the direction of the society has gone in. And I feel like people are so disconnected from the energy of life, from each other, from basic decency, politeness. When I go by people and I say, "Excuse me," they look at me as if to say, "What do you want? What are you asking of me? You know, why are you bothering me?" You know, they'll cut right in front of you, not paying you any attention. You know, looking on their cell phones, and then when you get mad at them for it, they look at you as if you're insane.
It's so hard to tell now, Andre, too. I find this, Dr. Michelle. Thank you for calling, Andre. Is you can't tell these days when somebody's got their earbuds, whatever, in, and they're in. Often, you know, I'm like Andre. I'll pass somebody and want to say hello, want to have social interaction and look someone in the eye, and often everybody's zoned out. So there's larger implications of that as well. What concerns do you have?
Well, I do think that for those of us who have, any tendency towards shyness, which is a very normal way to feel at different points in all our lives. But when it gets in the way, when we have anxiety about social interactions, I think we're really at a disadvantage if we're not practicing or facing our fears on a regular basis and practicing making eye contact, like such a fundamental social skill and way of communicating. You're making great eye contact right now, by the way. And that's important. It lets me know you're listening to me. It lets me know that you're caring or paying attention to what I'm saying. If people are looking down on their phones, or if kids and teens aren't used to looking around a room, a crowded restaurant, or a school classroom, making eye contact because people are looking down at their devices, they're missing out on a lot of skill building.
How much do you spend time now compared to 10 years ago teaching those skills?
Yes, it is a little bit of a passion of mine. Some of my clients out there know that I can be a bit irritating because I'm always getting them to practice things like body language, tone of voice, and eye contact. And we frame it a lot as communication skills and assertiveness training. And it's something that kids and teens will learn when we practice it. A lot of them also know what to do, but they don't show what they know because it feels awkward or unusual, right? Like sometimes I strike them perhaps as cringy when I actually look right at them. It's like I'm staring, right? But these are great skills to develop, and we need to build our social muscle because so much of success in life is based on social skills and being adaptable and working and meeting with lots of different people.
We have another caller. Natasha reached out to our listener line. She is a teacher, and let's hear what she had to say.
Okay.
I am a high school teacher, and I would like to add to the conversation my personal experience as a teacher of grades 9 to 12, and that is that phones are completely out of control in classrooms. And despite my best efforts to ask students to put them away, to put them in their bag, leave them in their locker, what I see is that they are literally not able or capable of doing that. So it creates a lot of distractions in my classroom, and really, I see it daily. It interferes with learning all the time. I would say pretty much constantly. So I would be very happy if there were I didn't have to fight this battle by myself individually. Myself and all the other high school teachers out there. So it would be great if there was sort of a widespread effort to put phones in their place and put the focus back on learning in classrooms. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Natasha, for calling our listener line. I've heard that from a lot of high school teachers, that it is a battle they wish they didn't have to fight. How do you teach teenagers, Dr. Michelle Warren, that this is an addictive thing and that they're actually hooked and that that's bad for them?
Well, I think that's exactly what you do. I think this needs to be part of kids' curriculum starting as young as the middle of elementary school. So kids are spending on average, as of 2022 Canadian data, kids are spending an average of 2 hours a day, or a majority of kids are, between the grades of 4 and 6, let alone adolescents, on recreational screens. So these kids are on social media. We know that they just have to enter their age. They can make up a bogus age to go on different sites. And we're not teaching them how to use these sites and protect themselves. I don't think it's any parent's fault per se. I think it's just our responsibility to sort of catch up. I know I was caught unawares when my child started using social media because I wasn't on it and I was too busy and not paying attention sometimes to the negative effects. And so I think that we need to formally teach kids about this. Kids are savvy. They now know and express concerns about how their data is kept and things like secrecy, and they understand marketing. So I think we need to teach them explicitly that they are, for lack of a better term, being manipulated.
That's a really smart idea, but I also know that kids, they like it and their friends are there, and isn't social interaction, and they think that's what they're getting, social connection through this phone.
Right.
Isn't that the main driver of a teenager pretty much?
Yeah, I think that it is, but I think that if we're teaching them before they get access, and then we're teaching them screen skills, and as parents and teachers putting hard work before screen access. But what I heard from Natasha is she is fighting an uphill battle. So hats off to her, and hats off to any educators or administration who are considering not having phones in the classroom. And, I'm sorry to my clients and my own young adult daughter out there that I think a lot of people are used to using their phones, and it's unusual and in some cases even a bit painful to be cut off. But I know that they have to concentrate. They're at a disadvantage. Kids don't read books nearly as much as they used to because they're too busy scrolling and reading things online.
204-780-0893. If you need a toll-free number, it's 1-800-268-5483. Weigh in on this. We want to know how you tackle the conversation with your kids, what impact this has had on your life, or if you've got questions for a child psychologist, we have one right here on this very question. What role, and I just want to help too.
Yeah.
So if you've got any tips on for parents or caregivers on handling this, what would you say for, say, age?
Yes.
Of getting a cell phone.
There is no black and white age. I think what we have to do is we have to assess a child's maturity and awareness, and then we have to monitor them. So Canadian data shows that only 9 or 10% of parents actually monitor the content of children's use of social media. 90% don't. And I'm sure a lot of those are well-meaning, busy parents out there. And similarly, kids say that about 90% of their parents don't monitor the content of what they're on and are focused more on time limits, which even aren't strictly enforced.
Ah.
Yeah.
How do you monitor it?
Well, my suggestion is that parents follow the youngest kids when they first go on, and that it's just understood that if you're on social media, I'm following your account, and that you're not allowed to have other accounts, just like I wasn't allowed to go out on the streets of downtown when I was in grade 5 by myself at night. It's that type of thing. This is, it's the internet highway we have to protect kids from now. They actually go out less and are in less physical danger from things like accidents.
But there's danger online too.
But there's danger online, and they're more depressed and anxious than before.
Oh my goodness. We've got a couple of more listener lines because this is such a topic that people care about. Let's go to one of them right now on how social media impacts thinking.
I agree 100% with putting warning labels on items, because it's that casual reminder that you just need every once in a while when you've been on a little too long and you start to think differently. It affects you. So you start to put it down. And if that warning was there, I think it would really help everybody, just so that they have that reminder that, yes, there is no scientific proof that there is scientific proof that it affects the way that you think. Thank you.
And thank you for calling into Radio Noon. So a warning pops up on the screen, and what would you like it to say if that ever happened, Dr. Michelle?
I would like it to warn parents and teens themselves. So parents of young children and teens, and then teenagers themselves are old enough to hear about this and think critically about it. That social media is designed to get your attention and keep you hooked, and that it's difficult to have self-control. I think we all have done this. I've done this. We expect our adolescents to somehow miraculously have enough self-control to withstand the addictive effects of social media that Silicon Valley has purposely designed for these different companies that run these sites. But, I got frustrated with my teen, and lots of my parent clients did too, thinking I've got this smart, mature young person. Why do they spend so much time online? Why can't they just put down their phone? And then at some point it dawned on me, that's really unfair. I'm a full-grown adult, and I need to take responsibility for helping.
Let's go to one more call from a listener.
Hey, I'm just calling in about the warnings for the cell phone for social media. I think it's a great idea. I think we've unleashed something that is probably the most addictive thing we've ever had as a human race. And it's a problem. It's a problem for adults. It's a problem for young children who are now being inundated with social media. I think we as a society really need to nip it in the bud early and start talking about regulation and what kind of health consequences are happening around cell phone and social media usage. Anyways, I think it's a great thing. It's a good first step. Thank you. Bye.
And thank you for calling. And what about a time thing on that warning? Because I'm sure there's a way a device could tell and say, you've been on social media for 2 hours. You've been on for 47 minutes. Just a reminder.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Janet.
Thank you. It just came to me. But because how many times I've done it too, and I don't even like social media. I try to avoid it,
Yeah.
but you can get on there and just scroll, and you're in, oh, look, what the girl that I went to high school with 40 years ago had for breakfast today. And you get into a hole, right?
Yeah.
Let alone on TikTok or something that's feeding you these videos all the time.
Yes, and no offense to you or other middle-aged adults, but I'm really concerned with young people, with kids and young adults' brains that are even still developing into their 20s. And I really think that time warning or a timer that's just part of when you're on social media and warns you when you've been on too long is really smart. But let's face it, it's going to take government regulation to do that, because why would a for-profit company that designed these sites and sells advertising based on the number of users on at any given time, why would they accept regulation? Like, there's regulation about some content around hate speech, let's say, nowadays, and that's been very controversial, especially in the US. So I think in Canada, it's going to take a similar effort as the Surgeon General in the US to force companies to do the right thing, at least by children, and to actually look at the science rather than just say people have to consent. And if they say that they're 16 or 18 or whatever age limit, then they've consented, and it's up to parents to monitor that.
Yeah, because that's a lot to put on a parent as well, and it is up to a parent to monitor it. But I agree with you. Now I want to know, Manitoba, do you agree that this is the right thing to do, that it's going to take government intervention? You can leave a message anytime by calling this line, 204-788-3797. That's the number to leave a message, 204-788-3797. We need to keep this conversation going. Dr. Michelle Warren, have you heard anything in Canada that makes you think Canadian politicians might be watching what the Surgeon General does and thinking the same thing?
Well, I haven't quite heard it yet from Canadian politicians, but I know in mental health, a lot of people are really, really interested. And we just published a handout. The clinical health psychology colleagues and myself just printed one, and we're disseminating it to healthcare professionals to give them information, and parents, wherever they are, parents of clients as well, about monitoring kids' screen use. And specifically social media for teens and females especially. Avoid beauty content, avoid hateful content.
Dr. Michelle Warren was our guest today. Thank you so much for coming in. And thank you, Manitoba, for listening.